already seeing what is panning out there. If you read Article 156 of the Constitution of Kenya, where it gives the powers to protect public interest to the Attorney General. And then the same, when you go to the Attorney General's Act, you will see that he is now given the powers to delegate. And in most cases, he will delegate to the Solicitor General. Mr. Speaker, a very mischievous government will then bypass the Attorney General and goes to the Solicitor General, because the Act gives that person the power to delegate. Who is this person who the Commission shall delegate their powers to? If we've set up a commission which is set up under an Act of Parliament, why then not either amend that Act of Parliament or do away? Mr. Speaker, I would propose that this very dangerous clause should be deleted, so that the independence of a body and everybody out there will not be confused on the powers of that commission. Allow that commission to perform its function, but not restrictively, but not now create room for it to be abused by setting up another agency that is delegated powers. Because, hypothetically, Mr. Speaker, if the powers that be are not happy with the independence of the commission, then they will just go to the other person who is delegated. It creates room for corruption, which is what we are trying to deal with here, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you read 7, the Commission shall, in performance of its function under this Act, have the powers to, D, it says, cooperate and collaborate with any public entity or agencies, any foreign government, an international or regional organization in the management of conflict of interest and, I proceed, enforcement of this Act. Mr. Speaker, what is it that we do in this House? We've got 2, and hopefully soon we'll get a third committee on oversight. We've got the Public Accounts Committee. We've got the PIC Committee, Public Investments Accounts Committee. I would have hoped that now that you're trying to really deal with the issue of corruption, incorporate the aspect of these 2 committees to be able to work there. So leaving out the Senate, yet sometimes we have these ESCC people there sitting with us in our committees. Why then not say in this aspect that even the Senate, so that you can deal with the corruption in the counties, Mr. Speaker? You know, and later on, I hope we'll have time, I don't know if we'll have time, that I'll be moving my motion on pending of bills. But if you really want to deal with a matter decisively, then you've got to create room for this oversight house to be able to work directly with the Commission to punish these governors, to punish these people who are stealing all this money that belongs to the public. In my view, Mr. Speaker, I hold the view that this is not an act that has been thought out clearly. It is an act, it is a bill which is being rushed to be able to please other agencies like the World Bank. Mr. Speaker, if you read Section 13, which I don't know whether it's the one that you're saying we're going to amend, it says that a public officer shall not, directly or indirectly, use or allow any person under the office authority to use any information that is obtained in the course of performing official duties and is not available to the public to improperly further or seek a further. You had actually, I was looking at it and I said, they should limit it to strictly private and personal interest. You know, when I was born, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, you can give me some additional time, because this is something that I really, really believe that we need to be very diligent. We need to take our time. So what I was saying is that on that Section 13, it is imperative that it is limited to an individual. You know, my brother has got no business dealing with my issues. Number 19, Mr. Speaker, a public officer shall not be a party to or beneficial of a contract for the supply of goods, works, or services with his or her reporting entity. Mr. Speaker, I think it is wrong to deny Kenyans an opportunity to be able to perform certain functions. If, Mr. Speaker, hypothetically, Mr. Speaker, you own a company that trades with the Senate, and that company has been trading with the Senate, it doesn't say that Wakili Sigei, Senator of Bomet, is trading with that. Mr. Speaker, I just want us to really put this thing into perspective. It should only be limited to an individual. If it is coming under your name, by all means, I agree you shouldn't benefit. But if it is your company, so this issue of indirectly, Mr. Speaker, that ought to be removed. And I can dare say, Mr. Speaker, if you go to these developed countries, you will not find such draconian laws. They are so quick to impose them on us, but they don't have them. Mr. Speaker, I'm a firm believer that Section 27 ought to be deleted completely in its entirety. I know the committee was probably recommending for it to be amended, but in my own reading of this bill, where it says, a former public officer shall not, and I'll read A, B, C, and D briefly, act for or on behalf of any person in connection with any specific proceeding, transaction, negotiation, or case in which the state is a party and with respect to which the former public officer had acted for or provided advice to the state. Mr. Speaker, the word former means I no longer benefit from it. In fact, if we are clever enough, Mr. Speaker, former staff have got historical memory. In fact, they will better advise someone because they can easily save the public money. In other jurisdictions, Mr. Speaker, former officers set up offices to offer consultancy services. In the United States, Mr. Speaker, former IRS officers who are working with the Internal Revenue Service set up consultancy services, and they will tell you, I was a former officer of the Internal Revenue Service. They help you be able to save your time. They help you negotiate better. Mr. Speaker, this Section 27, I believe, has to be deleted. Section 28, Mr. Speaker, is such other provision that I believe ought to be deleted, where it says a former public official shall not, during the period of 2 years. Why are you incarcerating me? Why are you making it difficult for me to make a life? Suppose that is the only training that I've had. So for 2 years, I'll stay hungry just because I happen to have been working in that department? Mr. Speaker, this is draconian, and it has to be removed. Mr. Speaker, because of time, I will set other provisions which I think are very problematic. Section 31, every public officer shall submit to the responsible commission a declaration of his or her income, assets, and liability, and the income, assets, and liability of his or her spouse and dependent children. That is ridiculous. Dependent children. Yes, they depend on me. But the fact that they are dependent means they don't own anything. And if I'm paying for them their college, and maybe they go to college and get a job as a waiter, now I have to follow my child and say, I need to know how much money you are making as a waiter because there's this ridiculous draconian law that we passed that requires me as a public officer to declare how much you are being paid as a waiter. That is ridiculous. Mr. Speaker, I want to request 2 more minutes. I conclude this matter.